It is Wednesday, May 22nd, and as everybody knows and celebrates every May 22nd, it is National Solitaire Day. I hope you're alone. Anyway, yes, it is National Solitaire Day, uh, which I found out a few minutes ago. But and I am going to talk about uh, it relates to Kabbalah and shit like that. Okay. But yesterday, uh, uh, I was talking. I wanted to talk about pranayama and uh, and things like that, and I was going to read a little something that I wrote as an introduction to the Hindu yogi science of breath, okay, by Yogi Ramacharaka, because it was one of those uh, books that very early, as a matter of fact, at the very, very beginning of my mystical life. It was a book that sort of turned me on. I read it before I read Autobiography of a Yogi, I believe, or any of those things that sort of jumpstart my crazy life. Uh, but then I got off digressing and talking about my own stupid industrial pranayama industrial accident or near industrial accident that I talked about in yesterday's talk from the parking lot. But as this is just very brief, uh, and as a way of tying up loose ends from yesterday, I'm going to share what I wrote about pranayama and meditation, things like that yesterday. So this is from the introduction to the Hindu yogi science of breath. And it starts off by a one-page chapter, actually just one verse poem chapter from Crowley's Liber, or the Book of Lies, Liber 333. And it's called King's College Chapel. Now, King's College Chapel, among other distinctions, is the venue for the choir, the orchestral choir, the chorus of King's College, Cambridge. And so this poem is done in the style, and forgive me for not knowing the technical name of the style, but it's like a fa la 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 la, da dee da da dee da 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 da. Okay, you'll get it. For mind and body alike, there is no purgative like pranayama. No purgative like pranayama. For mind, for mind and body alike, there is no purgative like pranayama, pranayama, pranayama. Yea, for mind and body alike, there is no purgative, no purgative. For mind and body alike, no purgative, like pranayama. No purgative for mind and body alike, like pranayama, pranayama. Now, I bet some talented Facebook friend can put that into madrigal or whatever it's called. So that's Crowley from the Book of Lies. In 1966, I graduated from high school in Columbus, Nebraska, who now is distinguishing itself by having Nebraska's first casino. Well, you got trouble, my friend. Right here, I say trouble right here in Columbus, Nebraska. trouble with a capital T, and that rhymes with C, and that stands for casino. And all week long, your Columbus youth will be frittering away. Okay, never mind. I graduated from high school in 1960 and immediately returned to Southern California, my birthplace, and the place that had been my home for the first 7 years of this incarnation. It was an exciting time to be young and alive. I was a fledgling musician and songwriter, and the Los Angeles area, along with San Francisco, was at the time the mecca for political activism. The war in Vietnam was violently polarizing the country. Music and the revolution in human consciousness we now refer to as the psychedelic 60s. My brother Mark, who is or was 6 years older than I, had also moved back from Nebraska and was busying himself with guns and motorcycles and marijuana and cool music. I moved in for a few months with Mark and his wife in Costa Mesa while I sang illegally, because I was underage. I sang illegally in saloons, involved myself in the shenanigans of the local Students for Democratic Society, and pretended to study acting at Orange Coast College. It seemed life could not get more colorful, interesting, or hip. Throughout my high school years, I had avoided completely the beer kegger parties, and alcohol abuse that was so enthusiastically embraced by my teenage and soon-to-be cannon fodder peers. I thought drinking was unhealthy, dangerous, and stupid. But back in California, I had no compunction whatsoever about experimenting with the various mind-expanding substances I had been reading about so much since the early 60s: marijuana, peyote, mushrooms, and LSD. I did not consider these to be recreational drugs, but rather true sacraments, mystic Eucharists, doors to altered states of consciousness such as those experienced by mystics, shamans, and holy people since the dawn of consciousness. In other words, I was serious about becoming a holy man. One dramatic result of my regular and systematic experimentation with psychedelic substances was a heightened sensitivity to the effects of light, sound, and taste. I became acutely aware of what I did to and what I put into my body. I would often fast for 12 hours or more before ingesting psilocybin mushrooms or LSD, and nurse a cup of weak tea during the sessions. I recall, after a lengthy and particularly profound trip, my body told me in no uncertain terms, "I am now hungry." I made my way to a local hamburger joint and ordered my usual cheeseburger. I must have still been pretty high, because when I bit into that pink and greasy slab of animal flesh and fat, all my senses, indeed every cell of my body, recoiled in horrified revulsion. It was shortly after the nightmare at Burger Town that Mark introduced me to two little books written at the turn of the 20th century. The first was called The Hindu Yogi Practical Water Cure by Yogi Ramacharaka. It was a real eye-opener. As I wrote in the opening words of my book, Angels, Demons, and Gods of the New Millennium, after reading that tiny book, I immediately turned vegetarian and embarked upon a frantic quest for a high colonic. The second book was The Hindu Yogi Science of Breath. a complete manual of the Oriental breathing philosophy of physical, mental, psychic, and spiritual development. A work that remains, in my opinion, one of the finest introductions to the practice of pranayama, breath control, ever written. These two works introduced me to Yogi Ramacharaka. And in the next few years, Yogi Ramacharaka would gently induct me into another world and another life. I was so taken with this man's avuncular wisdom and writing style that I read everything I could find by him. He wrote in such a casual and straightforward manner, so reasonable and logical. It was as if I were merely learning the common sense theories and techniques that should be common knowledge and conventional wisdom to everyone. As my studies evolved, I became familiar with the life and works of other great yogis of the 19th and 20th centuries. Paramahansa Yogananda, Sri Ramakrishna, and Swami Vivekananda. Now I will pause here. Constance and I last night on one of our public television stations here in town, PBS, we saw a documentary, a 90-minute documentary. I've posted the link to it here on my Facebook page, called America's First Guru. And it's the story of Swami Vivekananda. It was absolutely wonderful. And it brings to mind the explosion of spiritual ecumenicalism, I guess, that was spurned by the Parliament of World Religions that took place in 1876, I believe, in Chicago, where the world religions all came together at the fair, okay, at the Centennial Fair of America, really. And Swami Vivekananda from India came and blew everybody's mind. And whether you know it or not, he's blowing your mind too, or he's responsible for, if your mind gets blown, for it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And Paramahansa Yogananda, a few years later, nearly a generation later, would do the sort of the same thing. I don't know if any of you have ever read any of Vivekananda's books, Raja Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. Do, for Christ's sake, do yourself a favor. As a matter of fact, anything the Vedanta Society publishes is well worth reading. But and if you haven't read Autobiography of a Yogi, just don't go to work today. Get Autobiography of a Yogi and read it before tomorrow. You'll thank me. George Harrison, the Beatle, George Harrison, would buy boxes of Autobiography of a Yogi, and he would put a box by his front door, and every guest that left his house got a copy of it. It's absolutely wonderful. And that documentary, America's First Guru, about Vivekananda, whose guru was Sri Ramakrishna, who was an ecstatic, wild guy, okay? Please it'll help you understand yourself, and it will certainly help you understand where Constance and I are coming from, and how when we saw the concepts of thelema, we immediately went, wow, yes, this is the next step here. But anyway, but I digress. Okay, I became familiar with other works. I searched in vain for clues to the background and identity of my beloved Yogi Ramacharaka. On the bookstore shelves, his works were nearly all surrounded by a body of small and similar bound texts written by others of the New Thought movement, most of them published by Yogi Publications, Chicago. New Thought movement of the earliest 20th century. Among these other authors were Theron Q. Dumont, Magnus Incognito, Swami Bhakti Vishita, Theodore Sheldon, Swami Panchadasi, and William Walker Atkinson. As I would eventually discover, they were all William Walker Atkinson, 1862 to 1932, a Pennsylvania and later Chicago attorney and pioneer of the New Thought movement. For whatever reasons, Atkinson chose to publish his Oriental occultism titles under the pseudonyms, and his Yogi Ramacharaka titles are usually found in the form of sequential monographs along the lines of a correspondence course. This makes them eminently easy to digest and master, especially for a beginning student or of the subject. They were my introduction to Oriental occultism and gave me a firm foundation for what would be my life work and my enduring spiritual passion. I hope you'll enjoy this Yogi Ramacharaka classic as much as I did at the time 45 years ago, but it's now nearly 60 years ago. And be identified and enriched by its wisdom, its wit, and its seamlessly readable introduction to the important subject of pranayama, the science of breath. Okay, that's my introduction to that, and my plug for America's First Guru documentary. And again, you can just Google America's First Guru, and it'll take you right to an hour-and-a-half video that you can watch. And if you're at all interested, especially those of us here in the United States, I think you'll love it. Now, from the sublime to the ridiculous. Today is National Solitaire Day. Now, every day I look and see what National Pear Day, National this or that day, National Solitaire Day. And I just so happen to have written a chapter on solitaire. So I would be remiss in my duties as a shameless self-promoter if I didn't at least bring up the subject. But this is the Book of Ordinary Oracles, where I give the 7 secrets of fortune telling. That you can use any object. Any object can serve as a bona fide oracle. Okay, if you know how to put the magic to it with your own observations and acceptance that it's being what it is. I've got a chapter on solitaire. Well, I've got a chapter on tarot too. Okay, But let me see if I can just... The point I'm trying to drive home is that the minor arcana of the tarot is one of those nearly perfect things I talked about in Chapter 2 that can, under the right circumstances, serve as a powerful oracle. Anyone familiar with the sublime spiritual science known as the Kabbalah can tell you exactly why these cards are so nearly perfect. The four suits represent the four divisions of existence, the Kabbalistic worlds, and the four divisions of the human soul. These four divisions are further expressed by the famous Kabbalistic schematic, the Tree of Life, and with its 10 emanations of consciousness. Well, you get the picture. You've got heavy Kabbalistic perfection in your hands when you hold the cards of Tarot's minor arcana. And, in structure at least, a deck of modern playing cards nearly approaches that perfection. Playing cards may not be as complete or sublimely beautiful as a colorful deck of tarot cards, but used with sincerity and skill, they are potentially the most powerful oracular instrument you have around the house. So, and then I go on to talk about the treating of the lesser arcana as tarot cards, as their tarot card counterparts. But here is today's story: the Solitaire Oracle. Do you know how to play solitaire? If you don't, I bet you know someone who can teach you in about 2 minutes. And the solitaire I'm talking about is commonly called Klondike solitaire. It's sort of the white bread solitaire that you learn as a kid. And you can feed the cards 3 at a time and go through the deck many, many, many times. Or you can go through, which is, I think, how they do when they gamble in casinos. And or you can go through them 1 at a time. Either way, it's a game of solitaire. Klondike 1 card turn, Klondike 3 card turn. We'll call that. Today, though, most of us are introduced to the game through our home or business computers, many of which have the world's most popular version already installed. Not everyone knows that solitaire is also a bona fide game of chance played in casinos. Fewer still know that it can be a powerful oracle. The most fascinating aspect of using solitaire as an oracle is that the outcome, the answer, is not just a foregone conclusion determined by the cold destiny of the movement of cards, shuffled and cut. By playing solitaire, you inject yourself, your decisions, your concentration, your skill, and yes, your oversights and mistakes. All that's included in the process of selecting the cards for your reading's answer. The way you play the game is the most vital component and catalyst determining the final outcome. It's kind of scary. Winning, in the old sense of the term, is not the object here. Ultimately, the answer can be a 1, 2, 3, or 4 card reading that you interpret from left to right, but you could also interpret it from right to left. Okay, when you play on your computer, it automatically places the 4 fields in a particular order. I think diamonds first and stuff. But when you play it with your own cards, you can put those fields in Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey order and add another dimension to your oracle's answer. Let's see. Naturally, winning the game obviously indicates the best of fortunes, and the details of your triumphant answer are revealed, not so much by the traditional meanings of the four kings, but by your interpretation of the order of the suits. But every game is a win because the solitaire oracle never fails to give you an answer. Even if the answer is, I have nothing to say at this time, try again later. Simply ask your question and play a game of solitaire, letting the cards fall where they may. When you can go no further in the game, take note of the last cards you are able to place on the top of the play stacks and then discover their meanings below. And then I give generally just very generic tarot card answers to divinatory answers to the various cards. Of course, the wands would be the clubs, and hearts would be cups, and swords would be spades, spada, and the diamonds would be discs. Okay. There's also other ways you could, let's see if if you're not playing on a computer, which does a lot of things automatically for you, you could assign the four cards at the top. Now, you might not have any card. Okay, your game may be such that you don't have any cards in these positions, but you could actually treat these as Yod He Vav He. Okay, so going the English way, this one would be an answer or a dimension concerning your will in life, the big picture of your will, and this could be your heart, okay, your emotional life, and this one could be your mind, your mental health, your intellectual things, or if you're worried about some kind of a litigation or anything, that would be an important thing, and this would be your body itself or your home. And so some cards would go all the way to a king, and some fields would just go up to a 2 or 3, or maybe not at all. The aces themselves could be interpreted, if that's all you've got there, as a dimension that you're to pay special attention to. You'd have to sort of be your own oracular interpreter. But on a flight to London many years ago, I was just bored out of my gourd because I was just flying coach, and didn't know what to do. It was long before we had telephones to play with. And I'd seen the movie a couple times. And so I asked the flight attendant, do you have a deck of cards I could borrow or use? And of course, airlines in those days had treats like that they gave to kids, little winged badges and stuff. So she brought me a deck of cards, playing cards, and they were kind of small and I had enough room to play a game of solitaire on my tray. And then I started to think, wow, I'm going to play a game of solitaire to see how my lectures are going to go. I forget what it was. And then it just sort of all unfolded for me. This is an excellent way, because I screw up playing solitaire. I miss things. I overlook things. And I said, that's good, because I'm putting myself into it. Okay. Anyway, that's a smorgasbord of today's Wednesday talk. We've got our national solitary thing in. We've finished up loose ends from yesterday. I'm satisfied. And today, Wednesdays are script meeting days. I don't know if I've told you, but I'm working on I want to say a movie project, but it's more like a mini-series project that I'll tell you more about when when we're a little bit further along. But today's the day that we have our conference call with the writers. So until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.